Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. I am Dr. Malea Jensen. I am a board-certified family physician. I'm located in Des Moines, Iowa. So welcome to Dr. J's Prescription for Health. This is where you have an opportunity to ask questions, medical questions. Good morning, Lucy. I have with me Tucker. Tucker is my co-host from heaven. So Tucker will be helping me out, answering questions. Since he reflects a lot, I'm going to move him to the side so he doesn't reflect on you guys. All right, we will get started. Oh, before we get started, I want to thank one of my listeners, Diane. She sent me this, was it yesterday or the day before? She wanted to have me wear timber on myself so it would help with his healing. So I want to definitely thank, it is so cute. I got little timber all over me. So yeah, that he's my cutie pie. All right, so thank you. Thank you to my listeners. I appreciate all of you for your support, your cute little gifts. And so we got Timbers helping me too. I would, he's relaxing right now. You know, today is actually the first day. Last night and this morning, I did not give him any anti-inflammatories. I want to see how he does. We keep going maybe a step forward and then we take a step back. He's not getting worse. He's not really getting better. And this has been over a month now, chiropractic, all that. And I believe part of it is my inability to keep him more still. So he should be being less active. That is really hard when I give him ibuprofen or carprofen, which is dog ibuprofen. So when I give that to him, he has no pain and he proceeds to be a little more active. When he's a little more active, he seems to be showing signs of more pain. So I'm just going to try this. He is not in any pain. He's just slower and wants to just lay down. All right. It's also good that it's raining today. Actually, it's kind of snowing and raining here in Iowa. So he is not as really active outside as he usually is. So, okay. So after all of that mumbo jumbo, let's get started. Do you guys have questions? I am live now on Instagram and on YouTube. So if you have a question, please put a Q in front of it and I will try to get to it as best I can. If I do not know the answer, I will let you know. And so yeah, you guys over on Instagram and on YouTube, don't be afraid. Today, I wanted to go over a little bit, I took some notes in regards to questions that I got in reference to some of my reels. And one question was in regards to fasting versus time-restricted eating. There is a difference between fasting and time-restricted eating. When we talk about time-restricted eating, it's basically eating your meals in a certain amount of time. So let's just say you pick a 6-hour time frame. So you're going to eat between 11 and 5. If you are only eating your meals between 11 and 5, that's called time-restricted eating. The remainder of the time, that is considered, I guess that's considered fasting. So fasting is the elimination of any calories coming in, any food coming in, whether it's fake or real food. Okay. Looks like I got some typical YouTubers over there who don't have any interest in learning. So if you are on YouTube and you have a question, you might want to go over to Instagram because I don't have moderators. I'm a production of one. And so it makes it much more difficult to see where the questions are on YouTube because of all of the extraneous things that are going on, the comments. It's really unfortunate because I think there are people who really want to learn over on YouTube and they ruin it for everybody. So, all right. So somebody just commented and said, We fast every night. That's why we call it and we eat at breakfast. That's why it's called breakfast. You're breaking the fast. That is true. But that fast is not really long enough to do anything significant. There are stages of fasting, and at 8 hours, 9 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours, that's not really fasting. Okay, so good question. Subash says, can you have coffee on a fast? I think that you could do whatever, your fast is your fast. Is it the definition of fasting? I mean, fasting really is considered nothing consumed. Where, you could drink a water fast, you could have a fat fast, you could have a coffee fast, and all you drink is coffee. So you have to do what you think is best for you. Okay. All right. I'm just reading through questions right now. It's so much easier to read through them on Instagram. What are my thoughts on fasting? I think there is a time and a place for fasting. I can't really get on board with somebody going from a standard American diet who's obese or overweight and going completely to fasting. And the reason I say that is because I think it will be very difficult. Okay? Because the standard American diet, or whatever you were eating, usually is high in processed foods, ultra processed foods, high in carbohydrates, high in standard American diet foods. If that is the case, your insulin is likely elevated. Sugar or glucose or from carbs elevates the glucose, and elevated glucose causes a release of insulin. If insulin is always elevated, so that person is eating frequently through the day, insulin is never had a chance to come down. In fact, speaking to the person who was talking about breaking the fast for breakfast, they might have gotten up at 3 a.m. and eating at 6 a.m. Is that a fast? Absolutely not. Insulin has never had a chance to come down, okay? It takes, let's just say you had a standard American diet of carbs, and you had some pancakes and maybe a couple eggs and a piece of bacon. Those particular foods will spike glucose, then spike insulin. And the insulin really doesn't have a chance to start coming down till about 4 hours. And then it's trickling down. It doesn't get down to baseline. And then you eat again and it goes back up. This is why people who are frequently eating small, frequent meals of carbohydrates, their insulin never comes down. Yes, I believe that there's a difference in an eating window, but still the foods that you choose to eat during that eating window can affect insulin. And if insulin is not coming down, it's going to make it very hard for you to fast. Why? Because insulin is high and it's going to drop blood sugars. If you're not eating anything, blood sugars are going to drop. You are going to get hungry and you are going to eat. The willpower it takes to keep from eating when you are hungry, I mean, it's difficult. And that's why I prefer patients or clients or listeners to lower insulin first. If you lower insulin first by a low carb diet, then it's easier to go into fasting. Use that as another protocol, whether it be to improve how much weight you're going to lose. But losing weight at first, when you have high insulin levels, it's very difficult, you guys. And, I listened to Dr. Bickman, and one of the things that he has brought up is if he was going to invite people to a party and he says, I need you to come hungry. I hired 7 of the most awesome chefs. And so they're going to make all of your favorite foods. So I need you to come hungry. How are you going to do that? Most likely, you are not going to eat. You're not going to eat maybe a day before, or you're not, if it's an evening party, you're going to maybe have your last meal at 8 a.m. and you're not going to eat for the rest of the day. And you might go exercise. You'll go for a long walk, or you'll go for a run. You'll try everything so you can be hungry. So not eating when insulin is high is going to cause you, so that's not really a good strategy in order to lose weight or in order to fight off hunger. Because you just told me I'm just not going to eat and I'm going to exercise a lot in order to come to your party hungry. Not a good strategy, especially when insulin is already elevated. And like I said, it could take upwards to 8 hours for it to come down. It's elevated because of what you've eaten. And if it's still elevated, then it's dropping blood sugars. And then that makes you hungry. While we're talking about this, there are stages, or there's types of hunger, okay? One is a homeostatic hunger. Homeostatic hunger is a natural hunger. Hedonic hunger. You've heard of hedonism. A hedonic hunger is that the reason you eat is for pleasure, for a dopamine release. You're not hungry. You are eating for pleasure. And then there's a conditioned hunger. A conditioned hunger can be environmental. It could be social. They are habits. Every time you come in the door from work at 5:30 p.m., you know that you associate coming through that door with eating. You turn on the TV. You sit on the couch. You associate the couch and the TV with eating. Those are conditioned responses to hunger. And so that's not real hunger either. Those are conditioned. So what you can do in that case, you come in the door and at 5:30 and you say, oh, it's time to eat. And you go through all of the cupboards. If you waited 30 to 60 minutes before you acted on that hunger, it would likely go away. Changing the timing helps, okay? Maybe you do something different, not come in the door at 5:30, changing your habit. Maybe you come into the garage and then go for a walk. There's different things that you can do to change a conditioned hunger. If it's the couch and the TV that you associate with hunger, then I would develop a habit that you only eat in a certain room or at a certain chair. And it's not the couch and it's not in front of the TV. So when you're eating, you can't turn on the TV and you should not sit on the couch. The couch is only there to watch TV. The couch is not there to watch TV and to eat. So changing habits or stacking habits is a way to avoid getting taken advantage of by hungers that are not real. Homeostatic hunger? Okay. All right. You guys are free to ask questions. Good morning, Lucy. If you're fasting, is this a way to burn fat? Yes and no. Okay. Fat cells, why? Okay. Fat cells can either store at times or fat cells can burn at times. So you can burn fat at times and you can store fat at times. When are those times? A fat cell is going to store when insulin is high. And a fat cell is going to burn when insulin is low. If insulin is low, you will not store inside a fat cell. You're not going to store energy in a fat cell. So let's just say you're fasting. You say, I'm not going to take in anything. Well, it's still going to depend on how high your insulin level is. If your insulin is elevated, you likely will not burn fat. There's one time that is happening, but energy needs to be coming in. In this case, you're talking about fasting, so no energy is coming in. Fat cells can store at times, fat cells can burn at times. The cell is not intelligent. It has no intelligence whatsoever. It's being told what to do by hormones. That's why the whole concept of calories in and calories out does not work for me. Because you're talking about, and I know we give these examples all the time, but 500 calories of steak and 500 calories of cookies is not the same thing. Steak is barely going to rise insulin. Cookies are going to significantly spike insulin because you're significantly elevating blood sugar. The steak is likely going to trigger hormones of satiety. The cookies, not. So everything is determined by hormones. Obesity is a state of high insulin. Okay? Type 2 diabetes is a state of high insulin. The commonality is high insulin. High insulin is a hormone secreted by our pancreas that causes growth. It is the intelligent hormone that tells you when and where you're going to, well, not as much where, but when you are going to store or not store calories, or I call it energy. Because calories are really not a thing. They are a measure of heat, and we are not bomb calorimeters. I like to just talk about the energy source. You could talk about a carb source, a protein source, a fat source. These things matter. Eating fat does not make your fat cells grow. Okay? Eating fat does not make your fat cells. They do not get fat by you eating fat. They get fat from an energy source of glucose, because glucose spikes insulin, and insulin is a growth for cells. Now, when we're talking about fat cells, we also have to talk about either the number of fat cells and the size of the fat cells. Small fat cells seem to get bigger and respond to insulin more than big fat cells, because the big fat cells are already insulin resistant. They're full. They're too big. They can't grow anymore. So they shut down any intake of energy. Small fat cells are receptive to taking in energy. They can get fatter. Small fat cells can get fatter. Now, let's say we take two individuals and they both gained 10 pounds over the last year. One person who gained 10 pounds seems to be skinny, maybe got a little bit of a big belly, and the other one just got a little bit of chubbiness around them. The one who's still skinny, maybe just a little pot belly, also got diabetes or insulin resistance and high blood pressure. The one who just got a little chubby did not get diabetes, did not get high blood pressure. What is the difference? You see, the person who got a little chubby had a lot more fat cells, and they were smaller, so they could take in the energy that you were given it. You know, if you consume any food, then the energy, if it triggered insulin, it's going to trigger growth. So that person who had more fat cells, they got bigger, they got chubby, but they're not yet insulin resistant. I take that back. They probably are insulin resistant, which is likely diabetes, but it's not registering. How about that? Because in order for their fat cells to get chubby, they had to have high insulin, which is insulin resistance. Now, the person who did not get chubby at all, they likely stayed the same and they just got maybe a little bit of pot belly. That person had less amount of fat cells, so they didn't have as many fat cells, and they were all big. What do you mean? Well, when those fat cells are getting bigger and they started leaking, this is the only time fat cells can leak in the presence of high insulin. Insulin causes growth of fat cells. But if the fat cells are resistant, so there's not very many, and they got too big, too fast, or whatever, they're just too big right now, and you continuously bring in glucose, insulin is high. So usually in the presence of insulin, fat cells are going to grow, right? Until they can't. Then they're going to start leaking, and they're going to leak out fatty acids. I've spoke to this before. It's one of the only caveats that you can get lipolysis, fat breakdown, in the presence of high insulin. It's when the fat cells are already resistant and there's no more little fat cells around to take up the source of energy. So that person immediately goes right into diabetes. When that fat cell starts to leak, it's leaking out inflammatory markers like cytokines and interleukin, and it's also leaking out fatty acids. Those fatty acids go to places where they're not supposed to be. The first place, the liver. That's why the guy got, or gal, got that pot belly. They got a pot belly because that's internal fat growing around their organs. Their muscles get fat. Their tongue gets fat. All of the organs are getting fat wrapped around it. That is called visceral fat, and that is actually called ectopic fat. So you can see that there is a difference in size of fat cells and number of fat cells. As we age, the amount of fat cells start going down, okay? Kind of that's why menopausal females start getting fatter. You see, estrogen was their natural fat burner. Their fat cells were still getting fat, but once the estrogen is going down and they're not allowing their adrenal glands to kick in with estrogen production, and we could talk about that too, like why is that happening? It's due to high insulin. So it's due to the food they're eating. We have a natural way of making estrogen after our ovaries go into menopause, stopping of periods, and they stop production of, let me see, I don't want to miss this question by Carnivore. Okay, all right. So the menopausal female is kind of a different bird as far as that's concerned. But as we age in general, we stop making new fat cells called hyperplasia. And so we're kind of left with whatever fat cells we have. Can they shrink? Absolutely. How do they shrink? Lower insulin. Carnival Bright asks, carbs make me so hungry. I was hungry all the time as a vegetarian. What constitutes a vegetarian? Now I am keto carnivore. I'm so much less hungry. Your body knows when you've had enough protein. I would agree. Again, if we're talking in terms of not so much calories, but we're now talking about hormones. So when you're eating carnivore or you're fasting, ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, is going down. And leptin is also at a level that you feel full, okay? You feel full sooner. So it's very hard for somebody to overeat steak or salmon. There's nothing triggering a glucose spike or an insulin spike, because the insulin spike will then cause a glucose to go way down, right? If there are any places to put the energy, when insulin is high, it's going to stuff the energy into cells, and then blood sugar is going to drop. That low blood sugar will tell you to eat again. You're going into now your hunger modes. Is this a homeostatic hunger? Is it a hedonic hunger? Is it a conditioned hunger? There's so many things that go into this, but what Carnival Bright is saying is that at one time they were eating a vegetarian diet. I don't know what that means. I mean, it could be all bread and pasta, nothing to do with vegetables. Well, if they're eating those things on a vegetarian diet, those are all carbs. Carbs raise blood sugar, insulin spikes, and then blood sugars are lowered because it's going into cells. Now, your hunger is a result of such high insulin. So you go and pick the exact same foods. Why do you pick the exact same food? Why didn't you pick a steak or salmon? Because those don't trigger dopamine. They don't trigger your hedonic pleasure areas in your brain. These are, this hunger thing or this willpower thing, it's really hard to talk about because, I could just say, well, just use your willpower and stop. Well, I don't know that necessarily helps. It's just, I'm going to do willpower. At some point, you have to lower the insulin. That is the trigger. Remember, when we're talking about hormones, when you have a lot of body fat, you are also going to have a lot of leptin. If leptin is getting resistant, the leptin is going to go up. Leptin is your full line. It says, okay, you're full. But if you have more and more fat because you're eating more and more carbs, which raise insulin is a growth, you're getting fatter and fatter and fatter, all of that fat has leptin. So leptin is going up. So you have a hard time meeting your full line. And the foods that you are eating stimulate dopamine. So you're getting this feedback to continue to eat those foods. One other aspect, the foods that you choose to eat have no nutritional value. They have synthetic nutrients in them, but overall, they have no nutritional value. Very little protein, very little fat, and a lot of carbs, especially this, I'm guessing, a vegetarian diet. Now, with that, your hormones are playing a role. Your satiating hormones, leptin, is way too high. Your insulin, way too high. Your ghrelin, way too high. It's just telling you to eat, and you never get full. And so insulin is stuffing the calories, the energy into, I messed up, see? That's a bad word. I don't want to use calories. I want to use energy. They stuff the energy into cells until they can't get stuffed anymore. Then they start leaking out. Now you got inflammation. Now you got disease. This, my friends, is the cause of heart disease, is the cause of diabetes, is the cause of hypertension. Those are all symptoms of what we're doing with our body. I hear all these people, they're still reacting to what we're saying about LDL. LDL is the cause of heart disease. I disagree. LDL is not the cause of heart disease. If it were the cause of heart disease, the 80% of the population who are on statins would not be having a heart attack. Have you guys ever heard of metabolic syndrome or syndrome X? I first learned about syndrome X when I was just out of residency. I might have been in my first 3 years of my job. And I recall reading about syndrome X, and it was fascinating to me. Yet, I couldn't quite describe it. I knew in my mind how to get rid of syndrome X or prevent it from even occurring. It was a low-carb diet. How do I know? Because I did it. I didn't even know why I knew why I was doing it because there was a reason. I was getting ready for bodybuilding shows. So I know that if I followed a low-carb diet, I could lose fat. If I'm following a low-carb diet, my insulin is coming down. Fat cells are going to shrink, right? They're not getting bigger. Then you'll add in a little cardio and you'll eat just protein and the fat will melt off. And I knew that you could prevent syndrome X by eating low carb, but I really didn't know the mechanism of the insulin and leptin and ghrelin. Did I get hungry on this diet? Absolutely. Why? I was hungry is actually homeostatic. I wasn't getting enough nutrients. You mean you can not get enough nutrients by eating just protein? Correct. I wasn't getting any fat. Essential fatty acids are needed. I might have been getting essential amino acids, but I wasn't getting essential fatty acids. Now, here's where willpower comes in with Dr. J. I was very good with willpower. I could fight off hunger. It wasn't like easy peasy, but it was easy. Why? Because I had a goal. And the goal, because I'm a competitive person, okay, did not want to get on stage in a bikini with loosey-goosey fat flapping when I walk. That was not the goal of a bodybuilding show. In order to win, you got to be lean. And your muscles have to be full and big and cut and ripped and striated and all the terms that you want to use. So I knew how to get there. I tried to explain that to people, but I asked them to do what I was doing. Low fat, no carb, high protein. I just told you I was getting hungry. Now, were my people successful? Maybe at first, maybe 1 or 2 months. And then they couldn't handle the hunger. They didn't have a goal of getting up on stage. They didn't care if they had loosey-goosey fat, in their bikini. That wasn't their thing. And so I was actually causing them to get fat again, to reverse course. I thought I was helping them out. I was in a way, but I didn't completely know why they were failing. In my mind, I said, it's just willpower. Why don't you have willpower? But I wasn't really teaching them a lifestyle, because not even me could do that over 16 weeks. It does get gnawing on your brain and you get irritable. So why was I expecting that of my patients and clients? Because they didn't know. Now I know. Now I know if I want you guys to lose weight, lose fat. I don't really care about your weight, to be honest. I care about your fat content and where it's located. If you have fat content, like the little guy that gained 10 pounds, but he gained it all in his belly, that's very dangerous. The person who gained 10 pounds and they were just chubby around the edges is in less risk for cardiovascular events in the future. Okay? It's just a great learning experience, and I hope I can answer anybody's questions. I think some people over there on YouTube probably just need to leave. So, somebody is saying that they did a bodybuilding show and had a heart attack. What did they do before the bodybuilding show? Right? Before you start calling me full of crapola, you got to give everybody the whole story and let us decipher it for ourselves instead of calling us names, because the defense that you're using is really a form of ignorosis. It's called a condition of ignorance. And so I would ask that you probably just go troll somebody else. Carnival says, I have type 2 diabetes. When diagnosed, my A1C was 10.5. I got my A1C down to 6 through walking and keto carnivore. But last time I went to the doctor, my A1C went up to 7.5. So what does that tell you? What is that telling you about your diet? What is it telling you about your exercise program? What is it telling you about your muscle mass? If your A1C never got below 6, your insulin level, your blood sugar level is not low enough. Did anyone check your insulin level? We need to get insulin levels. You see, doctors treat blood sugars. They do not treat insulin levels. They will look only at your blood sugar levels, which you'll look at your A1C, and they will treat those two numbers without looking at your insulin. And let me give you worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is a doctor who is glucose-centric. They never look at your insulin. You have diabetes. You're on oral medications and they're not getting your blood sugars down to where they like it. What do they give you? Insulin. Type 1 diabetes. The difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1, they have no insulin being produced by their pancreas. Type 2, they have too much insulin being produced. Insulin is produced in the presence of glucose. So this person who never got below 6 still had what they were eating, even if they said they're keto. I don't know what that means. Does that mean you went to the store and you ate keto bread and keto pasta and keto cookies and keto out of a box? And you're carnivore, are you eating dairy? Carnivore is 0 carbs. Does dairy have carbs? Yes. Keto is 20 grams or less. So were you actually measuring the amount of carbs going in? What those carbs were? Were they net carbs or were they total carbs? You know those key words that they try to confuse you with? It's so you guys, if without any further information, I would like to know what Carnival's, her insulin level is. And you guys really need to do yourself a favor and ask your physician for an insulin level. If they won't order it, you seriously just order it yourself. It might cost you $10. Go to lifeextension.com, go to ownyourlabs.com. You can ask me, I'll order it. I'll send you the cart. I do that for a lot of you guys. Your doctor won't order it and you want to know what I would order. I just basically send you a list of labs. Just email me, IronLadyDoc@AOL.com, IronLadyDoc.com, or at AOL, IronLadyDoc@AOL.com. If your doctor won't order the labs that I suggest, you don't have to say, I got this online doctor and she recommended a certain set of labs. Can you order them for me? They're going to say, that's bull crap, and I'm not going to order them. They don't even know what they are, so they're still not going to order them. They're not even going to look at your list. If that is a concern for you and you can't, you're not able to get your labs, just email me. I'll order them for you. No, your insurance is not going to pay for them. If you order your own labs, your insurance will not pay for them. And the most expensive lab panel that I order is $350. Are there versions of that? Absolutely. I'll order what you want me to order. I am mainly carnivore 95% of the time. Only I eat steak, bacon, and eggs almost every day. That, again, you're talking in not absolutes, almost every day. Does that mean like every 5 days I'll eat bacon and eggs? What's 95%? Is the other 5% ice cream every single day? I'm not trying to put you down or anything. I'm just telling you that because you're not speaking with such details, it's hard for me to even contemplate what you're doing. Insulin is only elevated in the presence of glucose, okay? If you're having trouble with glucose and your muscle mass is low, you could consider lifting weights. Muscle takes up the first 80% of our blood sugar. That's why muscle building people can eat so much more crapola and be still insulin sensitive. Is it a good way to do it? Absolutely not, because eventually it's going to catch up with them. Your Olympic swimmer who's eating thousands of calories is going to be insulin resistant. They likely are insulin resistant, but when they stop swimming, they're going to be a diabetic with hypertension and cardiovascular disease. So the person who said they did a bodybuilding show and had a heart attack when they were fasting had their heart attack risks for the decades prior to them having a cardiovascular event. That is building up. A cardiovascular event is due to inflammation and a blood clot and an injury. It was not the fasting. It was not the bodybuilding show. They built up their cardiovascular risks over decades of eating crap and likely not exercising. I don't know. I don't know this person, but I can speculate because I've seen people like them where they'll blame everything on something like a carnivore diet or fasting or lifting weights. They'll blame it on lifting weights, that they stressed their heart and had a heart attack. I mean, that's about as dumb as it comes. But hey, their decades of spiking insulin, which injured and inflamed their arteries, leading to an injury, leading to a blood clot formation, that's what caused their heart attack. That is what caused their heart attack. Not fasting, not carnivore, not the bodybuilding show, and not lifting weights. It was their diet before that caused the injuries. Plain and simple. I mean, how long do you bodybuild for? 4 months, maybe 4 months, 3 to 4 months. You prep for a show. No, their injury occurred decades before. They caused an injury. Like you cut your skin, cut the back of your hand. What happens when you make a cut? A scab forms, right? That is a blood clot. And we naturally have the ability to break down that blood clot. It's like it never happened. Your skin healed and it's gone. But if you have that continuous injury in an artery, the lining of the arteries of your heart, for instance, and you continue to have that injury, this person also didn't tell us that they were a smoker or a drinker prior to the bodybuilding show and prior to fasting, whatever that might be. To them, fasting might be the 8 hours. The person who said, I just broke the fast at breakfast after sleeping for 6 hours. That's not fasting. That's not fasting. So, I could go on and on, but you guys, the injury to the lining of the artery is what needs to stop. LDL is not the cause of that injury. It's too big. It could never even penetrate the lining of the artery. You guys will understand that. If you look up the size of an LDL particle, it's probably 25 nanometers. The openings in the lining of the artery, if there is one, might be 0.25 nanometers, a fourth of a nanometer. LDL can't penetrate that. If there's a glycocalyx, a gel-like layer with water and gel, nothing can penetrate that. It's when that gel-like layer gets narrower and narrower and skinnier, and it's not protective anymore. That was your first line of defense. What injures that? High glucose, high insulin, inflammation, alcohol, smoking, nanoplastics, heavy metals. All of those things injure the lining of the artery. Not LDL. It was too big. It could never do it. That's why the brain has to make its own cholesterol. It can't even cross the blood-brain barrier. And the funny thing is, when we're talking about the Syndrome X, what I learned a long time ago, and then it just disappeared. This was in the, what would that have been? It would have been in the early 90s, maybe around early 2000s, when Syndrome X became a thing. And then it just drifted off, like it was nowhere to be found again, like nobody was talking about it. What is metabolic syndrome or Syndrome X? The other name for it, metabolic syndrome. There's a constellation of symptoms. or a constellation of markers that you look for and say, oh, you got metabolic syndrome. What are they? High blood sugar, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, high waist size, like the guy, the skinny fat guy. He was skinny with a pot belly, the one with diabetes and hypertension. He was that man or woman. So high waist size, measure your waist. If it's over 40 in a male or over 35 in a female, that is a constellation marker for metabolic syndrome. And then low HDL. Where in those 5 markers is LDL? Not even close, because they said metabolic syndrome was a lead up to cardiovascular disease. They even call it now cardiometabolic syndrome. And yet no one talks about insulin. No one is talking about triglycerides. No one is talking about your HDL. They're treating your high blood pressure with medications, which is high blood pressure is a symptom of your body reacting to high insulin. They didn't check insulin. They're checking your LDL. That isn't even a part of the cardiometabolic syndrome. But they group it in, and that's how they brainwash people. They're brainwashing doctors. The doctors actually still think it's LDL. When if you lower LDL, they're still having heart attacks. Oh, they're just unlucky. Well, it works most of the time. Well, I'll tell you what works all of the time. A high triglyceride to HDL ratio and a high insulin level, which leads to diabetes. And diabetes is the number 1 cause of a heart attack. Not because of the blood sugars, because of the injury, which caused a blood clot. And the blood clot hopefully stabilized. If it stabilized, it got plaqued over. More endothelial cells came and covered it up. But then over time, that buildup of plaque narrowed your artery. So now you got 2 ways to have a heart attack. If the narrowing is over 70%, that lack of blood flow could be a risk factor. Hopefully not. Hopefully it would happen so slowly that the body said, oh, we need to make more collateral blood vessels to feed that area of the heart. Then they don't really have a heart attack that way. They still have a heart attack because of blood clotting. So blood sugar and blood clotting are a problem. And blood sugar is only increasing the inflammation, and an inflamed area causes a blood clot to form. Do you see where this LDL concept doesn't even get mentioned in half the stuff? And here's another thing. I just want to bring this up. Many people, I don't know if the Carnival lady was, or guy was on it. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. If they got diabetes and their doctor puts them on an SGLT2, that's a type of medication like Jardiance or Invokana. What do those medications do to LDL? Raises it. Yet, do you know what one of the approvals that SGLT2 got? Cardiovascular risk reduction. So it's raising LDL and gets an indication for cardiovascular risk reduction? And you know what they say? If you go reading about this, do you know what they'll say? Well, the risks of raising the HDL was not as great as the ability of the SGLT2 to improve heart function. So really what they're saying is LDL doesn't really matter, right? And it is actually the diabetes that is hurting or increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease. It's high blood sugars. That's the reason why you're on the SGLT2 in the first place. You are consuming something that's elevating blood sugars, which elevates insulin, which increases inflammation. And the LDLs that we're talking about, if they would have said, hey, you know what? I think it's the small dense LDLs that are the problem. How do you get small dense LDLs? Those are oxidized LDLs. How do you get oxidized LDLs? Carbs that elevate blood sugar, that elevate insulin. Insulin causes fat cells to grow. and make fat cells inflammatory. And then if they get too big, they start to leak the inflammatory markers, and those inflammatory markers irritate all of the arteries in the body, not the veins, just the arteries. What is hypertension? High blood pressure, right? Is that a real diagnosis, or is it a symptom of high insulin? I say the latter, because if you were to lower insulin, you'll lower salt retention, you'll lower water retention, and your blood pressure will go down. That's what blood pressure is, salt and water retention. How do you lower it? Lower your insulin. How do you lower your insulin? Lower your carbs. You might have to go to 0. I don't know. What is a normal insulin? 3 to 5. People who have high insulin, if it's over 7 or 8, will have a dastardly time trying to lose fat. They might lose weight. If they stop eating, they might lose weight. How long can you do that? Not very long, because your insulin's still high. It's going to lower your blood sugar, and you're going to get famished. You'll eat, and you know what you'll choose? The hedonistic way. You'll choose something that delights you, pleasures you. Your eyes of lust of the eyes and lust of the flesh. Whatever feels good, you'll eat. That's just hurting your health. So you have to decide. Insulin is not a treatment for someone who has high insulin. There was a listener, I believe it was on YouTube last week, who said, if I take insulin, if I inject myself with insulin, will I lose weight? Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you will lose weight. You know, you will lose weight injecting insulin, right? If you don't have an energy source. What do you mean? Let me give you an example. If you're a type 1 diabetic, you have no insulin. You can eat thousands of calories and you'll never gain weight. Okay? If you have insulin and you eat 1,000 calories, you will gain weight. If you don't have a problem with insulin and you increase insulin more, you are going to get fatter. You will not lose weight. Giving a type 2 diabetic insulin when their insulin level is high, I believe, is like malpractice. You're causing that person to get fatter and slower, decreased energy. Do you think they're going to go exercise? No. Do you think that they're going to be able to get a joint replacement? No, because the surgeon won't work on them because they're obese. They'll tell them to lose weight. Once they reach a certain weight, then you can go on. What will they do? They'll starve themselves. They'll starve themselves. They'll be miserable. They'll get their new joint just because they reached a goal weight that the surgeon feels okay with. They never use the lifestyle. They just wanted a new joint. Giving insulin to a type 2 diabetic who has high insulin, because that's what they have, they're hyperinsulinemic, they're insulin resistant, I believe is just, you're worsening the problem. You are actually causing high risk heart attack. Insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia is a cause for a heart attack or stroke, clot formation. It seems so obvious to me, and I don't understand why doctors rely on LDL. And they're just, is it brainwashing? I mean, I guess. Is it just neglect? Is it ignorance? It's hard to know why, a doctor would simply give, one, they'll give an SGLT2 and it'll raise LDL, and then they'll give a statin, which causes glucose intolerance, which it worsens their diabetes. I'm not sure that they know these things. Okay? I'm not sure. But you guys do, And you guys might be able to help your doctors. I had patients who got me out of the matrix. It wasn't me. Absolutely wasn't me. I didn't have time nor the interest to go looking for something that I thought is true. Why would I go looking and try to prove myself wrong? I didn't have time for that. I was busy working out and, I had more stuff to do than to go try to prove myself wrong. What if it's not LDL? Go prove yourself wrong. I'm not going to do that. But over time, when patients are gnawing at you and nagging at you and sending you stuff, I hope that doctors are humble enough to admit that they could be wrong. I was wrong. I still think I was wrong. Okay? It's a tough pill to swallow if you're a doctor and you have a big ego and, we have a paternalistic viewpoint, meaning what the doctor says, doctors, everything the doctor says is true. It is not. It is not. So that's why you have to educate yourself. You guys can be doctors. You don't need to go to medical school and be brainwashed. It's just basically pharmaceuticals. Why didn't they just call it pharma school? Learn the pharma way. I was indoctrinated. I was indoctrinated at a young age. I was indoctrinated because my dad was indoctrinated. Children learn what they live. And so it's difficult. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. I talked about metabolic syndrome. What else gets insulin down? Hopefully I answered that question in all of this. Yeah, promise progression. I agree. Doctors don't know everything. We are human. And for the most part, you would hope that people who understand that they're human and they can make mistakes will also admit that they don't know everything. And that's what the whole journey is, to try to keep learning. By the way, this is a hoodie from a listener that has a picture of my timber on it to help him get better with his back. He's got an injured back for the past couple of months. So I just wanted to throw a kudos out to one of my listeners, Diane, who sent this to me in the mail just this last week. So thank you. I appreciate that. But, back to the promise progression question about doctors and not knowing it all, or college trained people. Honestly, there was I have no regrets. Okay, first of all, I have no regrets that I went to college. I have no regrets that I went to medical school, and I have no regrets that I became a doctor. What I do wish had not happened is that I had enough wisdom and discernment going into each one of those things that I could have seen what was actually going on. I could not. And again, life is a journey. And, it happened 20 years into my medical career as a doctor to be taught by multiple patients, by them sending me stuff and me going, okay, they're going to come back and they're going to ask me if I've read this, and I can't just say no. So I started reading it. And then there was more. And I kept reading that. And then they would listen to this particular thing on social media. And I was not really a big on social media. I am more so now, but I wasn't then. I was just living my life, doing the things, living the dream, just whatever. I didn't watch social media and I didn't read very many articles at all. And so when this stuff kind of trickled in, it just got me thinking like, oh my gosh, could I have been wrong? And then once I find out I am wrong, imagine like the guilt that you have that, oh my gosh, why I've ruined everybody's life. I had a teacher that just texted me when I was talking about this. I had a teacher from high school message me and said, we were talking about her early career. And when I was in her class, She was in the early stages of her career. And some of the things that she taught us, she felt now looking back was all wrong and that she damaged us. Well, I explained to her that I was in her class in her early years. And now looking back, the things I learned in her class was amazing. I didn't know it at the time. In fact, I hated it at the time. I didn't want to write papers and read literature. I had no interest. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be a sports medicine doctor. I wanted to be on the sidelines of the Minnesota Vikings or the Pittsburgh Steelers and be a physical therapist or a personal trainer. You know, one of those trainers that run out on the field. Yeah, that was my dream. What, are they going to take some chick from small town Iowa? No. So I had to have bigger aspirations, I guess. But I didn't want to do literature or write papers. And I felt my English was okay. I mean, I could speak, people could understand me. It was fine. Did I have to really improve it? I just wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about biology. We all grow up. We all have a bucket full of experiences. But if we allow that bucket to stay full from our experiences of high school and never dumping out some experience, because you can't, it's hard to add more experience to a bucket that's already full. And if that bucket that's full of the exact same experiences that you encountered in high school or college or medical school, you're never going to have new experiences. You have to dump out some old experiences. And that's going to take a lot of guts because that's your history. And that is hard to do. And then you have to move forward and add in new experiences. And it changes the way you might see life or see your health or see your exercise program. I could tell you back in the day, the only way you should exercise was to lift weights and lift heavy weights. You lift weights through space and you will get bigger and stronger and faster. And those are the things. But I tried to take a 75-year-old woman who was obese and have her lift weights. Well, she should lift weights because muscle is the organ of longevity. But the way I was going about it might have been wrong. It was wrong. Do you think she's still lifting weights today? No. I was trying to instill my experiences into her without teaching her why. She had old experiences that said, lifting weights injures you, it's not fun, it's boring, I should just go for a walk. That was her experiences. My experiences were lift weights, get strong, get on a bodybuilding stage, shredded and ripped and striated and no fat on your body. See? Different experiences. She didn't dump out her experiences and neither did I. But over time, we start thinking we could be wrong. There's so many experiences out there. Let's dive in. Let's humor yourself. Even if you read the article that the patient gave you, you could always defend it. How? Do you know what I said at first? Well, studies don't show this. I never thought to ask myself what studies. Who did the study? Was it relative risk reduction, absolute risk reduction? How was the study performed? Was it an observational study? Didn't ask any of those questions. I just said, studies don't support this, what you just gave me. So then I went a few more years of resistance. And then they just kept coming in and I said, oh my gosh. Okay. I had one patient got so bold, brought me 7 books to read. It was almost like I was back in my high school teacher's class in literature or whatever the course was, English 101, English Lit, whatever. It was almost like I was going to have to give a book report to this patient after reading these 7 books. Did I read the 7 books? Yes. Did it change my thinking? Absolutely. Did I have to dump out some experiences? Yes. Some of those experiences right now is trying to consolidate or connect the dots why LDL is not the problem. It's learning more and more about insulin and hypertension and inflammation and metabolic syndrome and high triglycerides and low HDL and a big waist. Because if that person has a big waist, it tells me that they have a lot of visceral fat. And if they have visceral fat, it tells me that they're producing a hormone in that fat that increases the risk of making a blood clot. And so if that bodybuilder who said they had a heart attack when they were bodybuilding and fasting, well, how much visceral fat did they have? Well, they're not going to tell you that because they didn't know they had visceral fat, but I could tell. But that was decades before the bodybuilding show. Do not be deceived by people who are trying to tell you that you are wrong, okay? Because they have an agenda. They have experiences and they want your experiences to be their experiences. It can't be. You have to form your own, okay? You have to decide, are you going to start reading a little bit different stuff and see, could you be wrong or could you be right? I choose now to continue reading and to continue to educate myself. It's ongoing. And when I read something or hear about something, I'm just going to tell you about it. Remember, this is not medical advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling Carnival what to do. No, I'm just giving you information. I'm just trying to get you guys to open up your brain cells and think a little bit. If it's LDL as the cause of heart disease, and LDL goes down with statins or whatever you're going to do, if you're going to eat Oreo cookies, because you could eat just a bunch of Oreo cookies and your LDL level will go down. I mean, only eat Oreo cookies. That's it. Just eat sugar. If you just eat sugar and check your LDLs, they'll go down. You're going to have a lot of small, dense LDLs. You're going to have a lot of oxidation going on, a lot of inflammation, and a lot of risk factors for heart disease. That's what sugar does. Do you need some sugar? Absolutely. How much? 5 to 6 grams. Well, where do you get that? The liver. The liver makes it. It makes a perfect amount of sugar for you. Glucose. 5 to 6 grams. Oh no. You need a cup of rice. You need at least 100 grams. Why? That spikes blood sugar. Blood sugar spikes insulin. Insulin causes disease. All diseases. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cancer, Parkinson's, depression, MS, all the diseases. Just because of one thing. You eat processed foods, you get high blood sugar. You also get a whole bunch of other stuff. You eat processed foods, all of the processing adds back synthetic minerals and vitamins. Well, what is that going to have anything to do with? Do we need all that? What if you're getting an overdose? You're eating a lot of processed foods, your whole diet. You're getting a lot of heavy metals, a lot of iron in there, a lot of manganese or whatever is in your processed foods. Well, that's what we need. It's the RDA. We just need it. Well, you're getting a lot. You only got one serving. You just read, oh, we need this much, but you're eating 100 servings. We were never meant to have all that. And when we take in all of that, what are we doing with it? Some of it you can't just pee out. Some of it goes into your cells, into the cell membrane, into the mitochondria. Have you thought about it? Well, Dr. Jensen, all you do is talk about sugar. No, I don't. That's all you're hearing, because if that's what you're hearing, that's because you're doing it. Now, the other things that you don't know that you're doing, I'm talking about, like heavy metal toxicity. Some of you are well aware of it, and you'll go, oh yeah, I had my heavy metals checked. Oh yeah, I had my zinc level checked, so they told me just to take more zinc. Well, why do you have low zinc? Well, I don't know. I just was made that way. No, you weren't. It's what you're eating. It's the ability to absorb it. Why is your vitamin D low? Oh, I'm not out in the sun. Well, that's one way. What else? Well, I eat a low-fat diet. Okay, there's another way. Well, I have a whole lot of body fat. Another way. Well, what does that have anything to do with it? Well, vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. It's made when the sun hits our skin, and then our skin makes vitamin D for our body. And then vitamin D is needed for everything else. A lot of things, our immune system, but it's fat soluble. And so if you don't eat fat, you can't absorb it. And if you are fat, your fat is going to absorb it. So your level could be low. And then what does the doctor do? Or what do? You just go take more. And then it gets stuck, or it doesn't get absorbed. Or you take way too much and you get vitamin D toxicity. So that's why people who are taking 10,000, 15,000, 50,000 units a day of vitamin D and their levels can't come up, one time they will, and you will be regretful. Something else is going on. You're not absorbing it, or it's being absorbed and locked up in places you can't get, that you can't use, or it can't be converted to the usable form in your body. Maybe you're on a statin. So many things, you guys. There's so many things that we need to take into consideration. And I, for one, love to talk about these things. I love to talk about your labs. I love to review them with you. So if you are interested in consultations, you can schedule a consultation with me. Just email me at IronLadyDoc@AOL.com. It'll be in the description. But you can email me. We can go over your labs. If no one will order your labs, I can order your labs. There's 7 states that I can't order. Only in the United States I can order your labs. And I believe there's like 7 states. New York might be one, Rhode Island. There's some states that do not allow you to order your own labs. Imagine that. In your state, they won't let you order your own things. Even if you're paying for it, they won't let you order them. It's a great state. Carnival says, thank you for your advice. It's very helpful and insightful. You're very welcome. You are very welcome. I wish you well. Let me see if there's anything. Looks like on YouTube, they are just talking to themselves over there, fighting back and forth. It's kind of crazy, actually. You Instagrammers are just so polite. So you would never be able to tell if there was a question over on YouTube. They're just back and forth talking to each other. Imagine that. Wow. So I just went to the very bottom of the, there you go. I just skipped over everything. So if you guys had a question over on YouTube, I just went to the very bottom and skipped over everything. Good morning, Brenda. Good morning, Lion. Good morning, Carolyn. What else do you guys got for me? Anything else? As a review, we talked a little bit about LDL. We talked about heart disease. We talked about the 3 kinds of hunger, 1 being homeostatic, 2 being hedonic, pleasure-seeking, and 3, conditional hunger, where you are eating just for, to eat. You're conditioned to eat at 5 o'clock, you eat at 5 o'clock. You sit down on the couch, you watch TV, you're conditioned to eat. That's conditioned hunger. We talked about the size of our fat cells. We talked about an energy source. The only way that fat cells can grow is in the presence of insulin. Hormones regulate everything in our body. So if you take in a source of energy, insulin tells it what to do, okay? If it's glucose, insulin is going to push it into cells, whether at first into the fat cells, then into the muscle cells. Insulin tells you, hormones in general tell you what you're doing with your energy. We talked about, we talked about calories in, calories out. So eating less does not mean that you're going to get fat loss. The only way, I do want to give you one caveat in this regards when it means eat less. If you were to stop eating and you could get past the first 36 to 72 hours without eating, so you could fight off the hunger, you will start dipping into your own fat stores. You will start breaking down fat. It's just that you need to get past those hunger stages. Then your insulin will start going down. It could go down to 3, 4, 5, and then ketones will be produced. Fats will be broken down from your body fat, and then you will survive on the ketones that the fatty acids converted to. The ketones are worth about 4 calories of heat energy. But if you want to just say calories, ketone has 4 calories, a carbohydrate has 4 calories, so they're about equal. So if you can get past the hunger and you have willpower, could be upwards to 72 hours, then you will start digging in to your own fat sources. And many people could probably live months on their fat. Remember, a pound of fat is worth about 3,500 calories of heat. And maybe we shouldn't even look at it like this, and we should just talk about the process, as in, if you can get past the first 72 hours of those hunger pains, you will start breaking down your own fat and using it to make energy in the form of ketones. That's why many people say at 5 days, they had so much clarity. Their brain was like waking up because all of the sugar and insulin, which causes all the fog and the diseases, their blood pressure drops. But don't just do this and stop eating if you have medical concerns. If you're on medications, you don't just want to jump into this because you heard something online. There's caveats. There's pros and cons. You need to know the process. This is when you maybe hire somebody to help you walk through this, because just jumping into it could be dangerous for some people. All right. Lion says, I just wanted to add to that what I just was talking about. There is an individual, I believe he may be from the Netherlands, who went over 350 days without eating. They might have been drinking water. They might have been taking an electrolyte solution, but they didn't eat. That's how much fat they had on their body. They could live for a year without eating because they had nourishment in their suitcase on their body. They were carrying around their energy source, a year's worth of energy, a year or more. I think it went over 350 days, maybe 365 days, maybe 370. Could you imagine going a year without eating because you had so much energy stored away on your body? I mean, you could just go on a vacation and never really have to eat anything. Save a lot of money. Lion says, I, along with many others I know, awaken around 3 a.m. most mornings. Is this cortisol spike? If so, what are some solutions? It can be a cortisol spike. I mean, with all due respect, our cortisol does start to spike around 3 or 4 a.m. Is the answer, okay. Our cortisol we need cortisol. Let's go with that. Cortisol is not always bad. There could be other behavioral things going on, all right? It's not always, we got cortisol and cortisol, Go lay down. I don't want to tell you it's not cortisol, and getting a cortisol level is very difficult because cortisol, just like insulin, spikes in and out. But I will say it also has something to do with insulin. And so I would be checking an insulin level as well as just simply doing a cortisol level. Now, I know Lion, and I've made other suggestions just to see, do we give a little bit of carbs? Well, in the back of my head, I think that would help because the carbs raise insulin, and initially it puts you kind of in a trance and a fog, so it's easy to get to sleep. But we might not stay sleeping because insulin actually causes a sympathetic part of our nervous system to go up. So it might not simply always be cortisol. Cortisol is from the adrenal glands in the cortex, and then the sympathetic nervous system is also stimulatory and could keep you awake or cause you to awake in early mornings. Conditioning, is it a conditioned response for you to wake up at 3 a.m.? There's a lot of things going in, but if your insulin is still elevated, it is causing a sympathetic type of arousal early in the morning. That's what I think. Carnival says, I can do a 24-hour fast, but any more than that, I start feeling very tired or dizzy. Well, what medications are you on? I'm guessing it's part of your medications. You said you were a diabetic. So did you lower your medications? Did you talk to your doctor? Okay. And honestly, at 24 hours, you're likely starting to shift over from your glucose falling, and you were so used to it. You were so used to having glucose on board. You're diabetic, right? And you're so used to having insulin on board, you're diabetic, right? That you got into a state, you're still taking your medicines, you're dropping your blood sugars. Of course you're gonna get a little dizzy. Your blood pressure went down because your insulin went down, which your water went down, which your salt went down. So maybe you, for your 24-hour fast and trying to get past it, you need to drink some salt water or some electrolyte water. Maybe you need to adjust your medications. Because why would you, if your insulin level is coming down, which is your blood sugar is going to come down, do you continue to take your full dose of diabetic medications? Likely not, because then you're going to get hypoglycemic. You probably are going from a blood sugar that you're so loving at 150, and it's dropping you down to 100, and you feel miserable, dizzy, lightheaded, hungry. 100, you're not going to die. 40, you might be on the verge of, yeah, that isn't an emergency. But 100? No. You are so used to 150 that when it gets down to 100, your body don't like it because it's not used to it. You're not used to normal, which is between 70 and 80, by the way. Fasting blood sugar between 70 and 80 is normal. 100 is even too high. 100 is insulin resistance. Okay? So, have you ever just tried 25 hours? Why stop at 24? Yeah, Lion says, I've tried some carbs, but it didn't help. I didn't think it would. Okay. Carnival says, I'm on metformin, but I don't take a tablet if I fast. Again, lightheaded and dizziness is likely due to drops in blood pressure. You might have been used to a blood pressure of 140 over 90, and it drops to 120 over 70, and you don't like it. Your body isn't used to it, so it tries to, tell you that, you're going to get dizzy or you're going to get lightheaded. If you need to raise your, okay. When you are fasting, your blood sugar drops, your insulin drops, salt drops, water drops, And then after a few days, it starts to equilibrate. So initially when people start fasting or they go carnivore, they have to add in a little more salt. They add in salt, and then you can take it away after a week or so. But try salt water and see if it does. Plus, salt water will really, really help. I've had people that do bone broth. I've even had people do butter. Is that really a fast? Well, kind of it is a fast, but it's just not going to give you the goals as fast if you're consuming butter during your fast or bone broth during your fast. But maybe for you to reach your goals, remember, here's another thing. A goal is sometimes counterintuitive, counterproductive. You don't want to set a goal. You want to develop a process of habits. For instance, I'll give you the personal one because you've already known this. If I have a goal to get on stage at a bodybuilding show, and my goal is to be at 3% body fat, I know that having that outcome goal can help me win, okay? When I reached that goal, I had nothing else to fall back on because I never really learned a process. I didn't have another goal. Do you set another goal? That is sometimes hard. When you get ready for anything and then you reach that goal, it almost feels like it's a letdown. And so you kind of go into this ho-hum feeling until you set another goal. But what I'm asking you to do, because people who set goals and then they reach them, like I'm going to set a goal to weight loss and I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Well, when you reach that goal, what do you do then? Do you just go back to what you were doing? Or how do you move forward and lose 15 pounds, 20 pounds? More importantly, instead of setting a goal or an outcome endpoint, work on your process. Work on the process of how you get there. If the process is developing new habits, say it's drinking water. If I set a goal to drink a certain amount of water, how am I going to do that? I'm going to sprinkle bottles of water in my house, in my car, at work, at the gym. I'm going to have bottles of water everywhere. As a reminder, drink water. And I drink the water. And then I develop a habit because the process helped me develop a habit. If I want to lose 10 pounds, I'm going to start out by lowering my carbohydrates. Now, the first 10 pounds was likely all water because if I lowered my carbohydrates, I lowered my sugar, which lowered my insulin, and insulin was retaining water. So the first 10, 15 pounds would have just been water loss. And then I got to the goal, but I never learned the process or I never developed habits so I can continue. Carnival says, I have 2 steaks a day, Celtic salt, and my blood pressure is fine. Is your blood pressure fine when you're having the symptoms? And what is fine? Did you go from 120/80 to 90/60? Well, then you're not fine. Your body didn't like that. It'll get used to it. Keep going. Gardens of the Gods said, earlier she mentioned vitamin toxicity, and that is no joke, as my brother had it and went from doctor to doctor and spent a lot of money before he even found out he had vitamin toxicity. I know, because doctors won't check. In fact, if you ask them to check, they'll get pissed at you and say, why do you want to do that for? You're into all that natural stuff, aren't you? Well, doctor, isn't that like a normal thing? You didn't even ask to see if I was taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, taking magnesium supplements and taking iron supplements. Why were you taking iron? Well, they told me I was iron deficient. Really? Were you iron deficient? Yeah, my hemoglobin was 11.5. So that's telling you that your hemoglobin's low, not your iron. Did you check your ferritin? Did you check your iron level? I mean, you guys, I know that you have no education when it comes to medical stuff. I get it. And you should be able to trust your doctor. I get it. But that would have been like trusting me. I was trustworthy. I only knew what I knew. And so if the doctor, me, never looked for anything, and I just told you, it's okay, it's not okay. Look, Garden of God, her brother went doctor to doctor until he found one that might have checked his vitamin D level and he was toxic. How about just asking a person, oh yeah, I thought I'd go on this weight loss diet. Well, what are you doing? Oh, my wife's making me smoothies every day. Smoothies of what? Oh, carrots and spinach and kale. I mean, at first, it felt cleansing and I was doing good. And all of a sudden, I can't even get out of bed. My joints hurt. Well, how long have you been doing it? Well, I've been doing it for about 3 weeks. Well, what do you think's going on, you guys? They're on a diet of just smoothies of carrots, spinach, kale. So basically raw things spun down into with a blender and then put into water or whatever they were doing. What do you think they got going on? What do you think this person's got going on? Could they have oxalate toxicity? That can kill you. There was a story of this man who went out to eat with his family or whatever, and he went to maybe a Chinese restaurant and asked for sorrel soup, and had a heart attack on the spot. Sorrel soup is full of oxalates, high doses of oxalates. And maybe prior to that, he's been eating smoothies. He got toxic and he died. He had a heart attack and died right there in the restaurant. They couldn't bring him back. My patient, the guy with the oxalate toxicity because his wife was making him kale and spinach and carrot smoothies, I don't ever know what happened to him. He had to cancel his appointments. Yes, oxalates. He had to cancel his appointment because he couldn't get out of bed. He couldn't even barely make it to the bathroom. He put a jar or a bottle or something next to the bed so he can pee into it because he couldn't get up. He thought he had the flu or something. Yes, so Carnival knows about this. She knows about this guy who had the heart attack because she read Sally Norton's book. It was a story in her book. It's rare. No bark. So it is rare, but it happens, you guys, and we need to be aware of it. You don't just go and take vitamins and minerals, okay? Get levels. If you want to take them, get your levels checked, and then understand why they're low. Why is copper low? Why is copper high? Why is zinc low? Why is zinc, why is your calcium level low or high? Why are you getting, osteoporosis? Why is your calcium levels changing? Why are you on a PPI? Why are you on blood pressure medicines? There's so much. And your doctor in a 5 or 10 minute session can't share all this stuff with you. That's why you guys are listening to doctors online. We're doing this for free, because we truly want to help. At least I don't know any of the doctors personally. I just listen to them. They don't necessarily have to be a doctor. But if they're trying to teach people and they're doing it for free, I'm not selling anything, you guys. I don't have anything to sell. I can sell a consultation to you, but then you still get more information. But I don't have anything to sell. I'm not selling you vitamins or minerals or supplements or nutraceuticals or pharmaceuticals, nothing. In fact, I want to deprescribe you. I want you to be off of your medicines, not on them. You're on them because your doctor is treating a symptom, not a disease. Your blood pressure, not a disease. It's a symptom of something else. What is it? High insulin. You're insulin resistant. Why are you insulin resistant? Maybe too much sugar. Maybe your cells can't take it in. Maybe you got iron overload. All of these, nobody's ever looking. Well, I don't have iron overload. In fact, I got low hemoglobin. That means nothing. Check other things. Maybe you got all of your iron locked up in your liver. Is that why my liver's not working very well? Exactly. Well, how do I know if my liver's working well? Get an AST and an ALT and a GGT. Get a CBC. A CBC can tell you a lot of stuff. Well, my doctor said it was all okay. Well, it's all okay. Did they look at every parameter? Well, all of it's in the reference range. The reference range is an average range of all the people that comes into the lab. So you're really measuring yourself against the population, right? And what, 80% of the population is sick? So you're measuring yourself against a sick person, not a healthy person. Healthy people don't go to the lab. I mean, they're starting to now. We're gonna start changing reference ranges, aren't we? All you healthy people are getting your labs checked. Yeah, you're gonna start changing the reference. Like they're gonna have to do a whole new series, or they're just gonna tell you that you're out of range and you suck. So this person, Carnival, says, been eating 2 steaks a day, bacon, eggs, about a year, added back a couple salads a week, and started getting aches and pains. I hear you. I love peanut butter, and I went off of it because I read that it's really, really bad for you. And so I just wanted to go off of it. And guess what? My aches and pains, whoa. Like I have constant shoulders from all my lifting. My shoulders were always sore. It was hard for me to sleep. A lot of things. I went off of peanut butter because it was really my last thing. I mean, I just had to give up peanut butter. And it was only maybe a tablespoon a day. I gave it up. It went away. I said, do you think it was really from the peanut butter? Maybe you just are in a really good place right now. Oh yeah. After about 3 weeks it was maybe, you know what I did? I was challenged by a patient to do it for Lent. How many? I don't know how many. Is 40 days Lent? I can't remember. Okay, so I did it for that amount of time for Lent, and then I decided I would go back and eat a tablespoon of peanut butter. Oh my gosh. Not only was my gut in knots, but the aches and pains in my joints, especially my shoulders, came back. Do you think I eat peanut butter? Only if I want to have joint aches and pains for about 5 days. Just from salads, the eyesight got worse. I mean, it's amazing how our body reacts to plant toxins. I mean, plant toxins are so bad. Well, but I love my plants. Well, then eat them. You can do whatever you want. Oh, I had to fast forward again to all of my A Kidney for All says, preach. I don't know if you're talking to everybody on your platform or are you talking to me, but I'm doing the best I can, you guys, by talking and sharing what I think is pertinent information. And I hate to say that, what I think, or it's in my opinion, but I've been where you guys are, okay? I've been where I thought LDL was the problem, and I thought that you give insulin to a type 2 diabetic if you can't control their blood sugars. And I couldn't figure out why they kept needing more and more insulin, because you couldn't put the energy anywhere else. I would say, what are you eating? Well, I just eat the typical, or, I've been carnivore. Really? You've been carnivore, 0 carbs, mind you, and you're needing more and more insulin? Something else is going on. And is carnivore mean I drink milk? Because that's from an animal? I mean, I've really honestly had people try to eat carnivore and eat all plants. It doesn't really work because plants are carbs. But Carnival says, I wish more people knew this. Well, I wish that too, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if you think you want more people or wish that more people would know, share my stuff, like my stuff, like this live stream, share this live stream, share it on your story. All of you can do that. It didn't cost you anything. You want more people to know or to educate themselves, not just listen to their paternalistic doctor who says, I know what's best. And I was never that doctor, mind you. Here was me. I'm going to provide you with some information, and now what's your decision? It wasn't even what I call shared responsibility. It was me providing you with information, and then you make the decision because you have enough information. I still kind of live by that, but I also now lean more towards shared decision making because I think I need to get involved a little bit in saying, are you sure you want to do that? Okay, doctor, why are you saying that? Because now I'm starting to wonder, is this the right decision? Okay, well, let's talk about it. And then we go through it. Now, an appointment like that could take an hour. When was the last time any of you guys listening, your doctor spent an hour with you? That's what I did. I would spend 40 to 60 minutes with my patients, teaching them every day. How many patients can you see in that amount of time? Maybe 10. Because you had some quick ones in there that just had a stuffy nose. I remember there were times my nurse would kind of knock on the door and say, hey, you should probably maybe get going a little bit. We're getting behind. We weren't really behind because my nurse knew that I wanted to teach and really only scheduled a person every hour. But who was behind? Me, because I couldn't do my charts. So I would do 10 clickety-clack charts at the end of the day, and I was working till 7 p.m. at night. That is not a life. That is not a life. Only because I wanted to help, and I could only help 10 people at a time. Now I can help 3,000 people at a time. I mean, imagine that. And if I helped 3,000 and they shared my thing with 1,000 people, think how many people could be helped. And then everything Dr. Jensen is saying, and is it aligning with what Dr. Jamnatis says, or Dr. Barry, or Dr. Paul Mason, or Dr. Diamond, David Diamond, or Dr. Ovadia, or Chafee, or on and on and on. Is it all aligning? Yes, it seems to be. Do you mean we've been wrong all this time? Maybe. But I guarantee you, there is going to be a mechanism of cardiovascular disease. The injury is going to be more and more in stone. It's going to be more and more obvious. Right now, we're kind of getting the logistics of it, okay? We know that it's inflammatory. We know that it is. How do you find out how your insulin level is in your body? Get a blood test. Melissa, get a blood test. Ask for a fasting insulin. If they won't order it, Melissa, contact me. I will order it for you, and you'll pay 10 or 12 or 15 bucks out of pocket, and you'll have your fasting insulin level. Okay? But at some point, you guys, we are going to know the exact mechanism of what causes a heart attack. And I'm guessing we already know it's inflammation. We already know it's from a blood clot. We already know it's not LDL. But you got doctors hanging on because they don't want to be wrong or admit they're wrong. So until the guidelines change by whoever makes the guidelines, doctors are going to continue following the guidelines because they don't want to be sued. If they follow guidelines, likelihood of them being sued is very minimal. They don't follow the guidelines, and the chances increase. That's why doctors are not practicing anymore. They're online teaching. They're hoping they can change the direction of 3,000 people who will tell 1,000 others or 100 others and get the guidelines to change. We have been indoctrinated. We have been bamboozled with buffoonery since before most of you were born, the 1920s. Pharma is a joke. Oh, I know you'll get people fighting. No, it saved my life. No, it did not save your life. It didn't cure anything. You still have it. You never changed your habit. You just changed the outcome. And you needed a medication. There's probably a time and a place for a medicine. You get so behind the 8 ball, you get a urinary tract infection. We have to put you on an antibiotic, or else you'll die. you'll get sepsis. So there is a time and a place. But how did you get the urinary tract infection? Oh, we went on a trip and we just didn't want to stop, so I held my urine. I just, whatever it is. I mean, there's so many excuses, but if you guys don't have any further questions, Melissa says, I'm a type 2 diabetic, 16 years on insulin, a type 2 diabetic on insulin. Prior to going on insulin, did you get a C-peptide level? Did Melissa, before going on insulin, get a C-peptide level? Why do I need a C-peptide level? You want to see if your pancreas was still pumping out insulin. Before going on insulin, did you get an insulin level? No, none of that. I just went on insulin. So now Melissa giving me more information, thank you very much. We can't just get an insulin level on her. We could get a C-peptide level. We could see if her pancreas is actually working. If it's less than 1 or 0, her pancreas probably isn't working. And she needs insulin. But how much insulin does she need? Well, it depends on what she's eating. So if she wants minimal insulin, 5 units, 6 units, 7 units, minimal, no carbs. Now she's like a normal person who should have a normal 5 to 6 gram of glucose in their bloodstream at any one time. But if she needs 90 units of insulin, then what she's eating is requiring her to dose more and more insulin. So no, Melissa can't get an insulin level. And no, Melissa says she didn't know to do that. She trusted her doctor who did not know anything about anything and put that person on insulin because they ran out of the gamut. They ran out of metformin, they ran out of the SGLT2, they ran out of whatever it is that they were putting them on orally. And then they went to insulin because the blood sugars were so high. They didn't say, hey, Melissa, what are you eating? Oh, well, I eat burritos and pizza and chicken. I have some toast and maybe an egg. And then I'll have some salad and croutons and a bunch of beans and lentils and this and that. And then we'll go out to eat. And then she'll have a soda and maybe a ton of Western dressing on her salads and all of this sugar, which is requiring more and more insulin. Well, her pancreas said, nuh-uh, I'm done. I'm burned. Woo, I'm burned out. So doctor says, oh, you need insulin now. Well, no, most type 2 diabetics are hyperinsulinemic and insulin resistant. No matter how much insulin you give Melissa, it's going to take more and more because her cells are resistant. They said, no more, I'm full. It's a protective mechanism, those fat cells. They shut down. They don't want any more. But you're going to still force feed it. You're going to give even more insulin and try to jam it in there. She's eating it. You're going to jam it in there, doctor, no matter what. Same with metformin. That's what it's doing. It's jamming it in there. The cell's saying no. You're saying yes. The cell says I'm full. The doctor says I don't care. I am just trying to get your blood sugars down. Well, that's not helping you. Where are they going to go? Where is it going? Where's it going? I continue to eat it. You're just going to make new fat cells? There's no more fat cells to be made. I can get more muscle and then I can take some. Okay. Until you can't grow any more muscle, get rid of the carbs. Get rid of the carbs. Lower the amount of dose of insulin. Maybe, just maybe, praise the Lord, that your pancreas will kick back in. How do you know? Get a C-peptide. Another caveat to this whole thing. Was Melissa ever checked for a type 1.5 diabetes? Was Melissa ever checked for, with autoimmune, a type 1 autoimmune? Maybe Melissa's not a type 2. Maybe Melissa's not a type 2. Did her doctor check? Likely not. He didn't check an insulin. He didn't check a C-peptide before even putting her on insulin. See, that's why you guys need to know more and more. And you need to educate yourself. And you need to get on these 2-hour live streams. And you go, oh my gosh, my doctor's just, well, what are they doing? Well, I don't know what they're doing. I can only speak for myself because I was working on my own. I was working on my own. I don't know what other doctors were doing unless a person come to me and said, this is what my doctor did. And then I go, oh boy. Diabetes insipidus is a lot different. You know, peeing a lot, drinking a lot, that is a lot different. There's something else going on when we get diabetes insipidus. That is not type 2 diabetes, and that's not type 1 diabetes, and it's not an insulin thing, okay? Yes, it's an endocrine thing, but there's other things going on, and maybe the pancreas is not the main organ of the problem, okay? Aprixum says 187 picograms per milliliter B12, is that bad? 187, in America, a 187 is very bad. A 187 with a goal of 1,000, that just tells me that your B12 level is not doing very much for your brain. We need B12 for brain function, for your nerve function. And so, you know, a lot of times people will have ringing in their ears, they'll have brain fog, sleepiness. Your brain needs B12, and that's a pretty low level if it's in American. I don't know I don't know if picograms per ml is America or not. I don't know all of I just know levels. If it's American, it's 187. Yeah, that's bad. Okay. Do you know why a possible reason why my iron would be low if I have 2 steaks a day? I thought it was really strange. We have 2 types of iron. We have non-heme iron and heme iron. I'm guessing your heme iron is fine. I'm guessing the iron, did you get a ferritin level? A transferrin level? Did you get a TIBC? Did you get a total iron? Did you get a CBC? Did you get a GGT? Likely your iron is trapped from years of taking in synthetic iron, non-heme iron, or plant iron. That is non-heme iron. Non-heme iron comes from plants. If you were a plant eater, a plant taker of synthetic non-heme iron, we can't absorb it. We can't use it. Maybe 3% of it. It gets trapped in our organs, especially our liver. I'm guessing that you have liver disease, and that's why you can't get your A1C down. You are insulin resistant because you have iron overload, not iron deficiency. Uh-oh, now you're really confusing me, doctor. I'm just telling you the way it is because I've learned this. It's taken me more than a year to even think that this is a possibility. Iron overload in the presence of iron deficiency? Yes. 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 Iron trapping is real. It's ruining every organ in our body. Your liver is not working. You're going to need more and more medications to get your A1C down because your liver is not working. You're insulin resistant because your liver, you could be all the carnivore you want and it'll never work because your liver is not working because you're iron overloaded. Non-heme iron overload. It's causing your insulin resistance. The heavy metals are causing insulin resistance. Your nanoplastics are causing insulin resistance. Is it always sugar causing insulin resistance? Well, high sugar and high insulin is insulin resistant, but are there other possibilities? Yes, there are. I just gave you a few. So I don't want to put all of my chips into one pot. You know, some people say all iron overload will cause insulin resistance, and that's the reason you have it no matter what you eat. I can't get on board and be a reductionist like that. It's a combination of things. But you're asking me why your iron would be low if you're eating 2 steaks a day? You're getting in enough heme iron? There could be a problem with that too. You know, I don't know. I don't know without checking your labs, and it would be a good place to get a consultation and we can go over things. But you will need certain labs. And before you have a consultation, I don't want you to waste your money. Get the labs that I suggest, and then we can go over them. So email me, IronLadyDoc@AOL.com. Okay? I grew up with the healthy food pyramid diet. Well, that means that you were eating a ton of carbs and a ton of plants and no meat. You did what they told you. You were bamboozled by the buffoonery. That is my logo. It's going to be my t-shirt logo. No longer bamboozled by the buffoonery by Dr. J. Right? One of you guys is going to make that for me. Make that logo. And we're going to put it on a bunch of t-shirts, and then we're going to sell them at cost, not to make money, at cost. So somebody's going to answer you, what do you mean you're not bamboozled by the buffoonery? Oh, geez, I could go on, but you need to go listen to this, or this is what, boy, you look good. What did you do? Looks like you've lost some weight. Yeah, I was bamboozled by the buffoonery, but no longer. I was doing what the doctor told me. Eat the food pyramid, eat the My Plate, eat 5 to 6 servings of grains. Just eat a tiny bit of meat, because the meat's going to raise your LDL and you're going to have a heart attack. Well, I've already had a heart attack and I wasn't even eating any meat. Oh, really? No longer bamboozled by the buffoonery, by Dr. J. Hi, Jim. Good to see you on here. Dr. Christie, A1C may be falsely low if red blood cells are not living. Hers was the opposite. She said she was carnivore, Dr. Christie, but her A1C could not go down. In fact, it started going up. So her red blood cells were lasting longer, but they're not going to last that long, that they're going to be glycated that long to get an A1C of 7. No, she's insulin resistant for other reasons, Dr. Christie, and you know she's likely iron overloaded. Her liver is worsening her insulin resistance. She was told she has low iron. She does not. She has high iron. You know that. A1C 7 controlled is okay? Oh no, it is not. 5 is normal. 5.5, maybe. 5.6, 7, 8, 9 and above, diabetes. Jim says, makes sense. Insulin resistance, not just sugar and carbs. Absolutely. You got to get your liver function. You got to get a CBC. You got a GGT. There's a lot of labs. Again, if you guys want a list of my labs, you don't even, no pay. I'll just send them to you. It takes me 3 minutes. Look, I spent 2 hours with you guys for free. 3 minutes to send you a list of labs so you can ask your doctor for. I'd be happy to do it. Really. I want you to have the right labs. When would you recommend a phlebotomy if iron is too high? I don't want you to do phlebotomy. Your iron is too high. Which iron is it? Ancestry healed, why is your iron high? Also, okay, you guys are going too fast. Okay, Dr. Christie, phlebotomy stresses the bone marrow and drains heme iron. Exactly. So there's heme iron in our blood. You got iron overload because of non-heme iron. When you do a phlebotomy and the non-heme iron is trapped in the organs, you can't get rid of that. You're getting rid of the blood iron. You're dumping blood. Blood iron is your heme iron. So now you're getting rid of the good stuff and leaving the crappy stuff. And when you dump blood, it forces your bone marrow to start working really, really fast. And it's going to release, you're causing stress to the stem cells. And that's not good. What if that can lead to cancer? Stressing bone marrow is not a good thing. Okay, if you want to donate once a year because somebody needs your blood, go for it. But if you're on enhancing medications and your iron's going up, yeah, you got a problem. You got trapped non-heme iron. You needed to consider maybe talking to Dr. Christie, okay? My brother has high iron, so that is interesting. Apparently high iron can worsen diabetes. Absolutely. What is heme iron? What if heme iron is high? How do you know? You didn't get the test to look. You can know by certain things. What is your ferritin, your TIBC, your total iron? What's your GGT? What's your MCV? There's a lot ancestrally healed that you would need a consultation for. Becca, I'm not going to just send you a list of labs. You're going to message me and I will, okay? I will never remember. I'm guessing that's Melissa, but I will never remember to send you the labs. You email me at IronLadyDoc and I'll send them to you. Around 2, any thoughts on what other than diabetes, anemia, kidney? Around 2. Melanie, send me a message. I don't know what you're saying. Okay. You guys, we've been talking for about 2 hours. I will be back, Lord willing, tomorrow at 10 a.m. But my little dogs have to go out. They're talking to me, and I want to make sure that they go to the bathroom in the right spot, which is outside. And it's raining and kind of snowing here. Not yet. It's freezing rain. It'll be okay. I'm okay. I got Timber, and I'm going to carry Timber since he's got a bad back. I carry him everywhere. Melanie, you can message me on Facebook or just simply email me at ironladydoc@aol.com. AOL.com. IronLadyDoc. And I will send you the list. Okay. Lord willing, I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. I am here every Saturday at 9 a.m. Central, every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central. Okay, you guys? Have a great day. See ya.